call this policy committee meeting, St. Mary Parish School Board, to order. Dr. Fagenbush, would you please call roll?
Mr. Mancuso?
Here.
Ms. Brent? Here. Ms. Anselm? Here. Ms. Jones? Mr. Parity? Three present, two absent. Whipple.
Okay, well, we conduct business. Okay, so under new business, we have some policies to address. So items 1, 2, and 3, with the concurrence of the other committee members present, I would like to take these in a little bit different order than what they're shown. Okay, so I would like to talk about item 2 first, move on to item 3, and then item 1. Does anybody have any objection to doing that? If you do, please say so. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to start with item number 2, discussion and action on policy manual review process. We kind of talked about this last committee meeting. There was one thing I would like to point out. One change that we're going to make in the process is that we're going to get legal review done before our policy committee. So last time we tried to incorporate these LSBA policies, but it had not gone through legal review. And then we got comments back from legal review after. So I would like to get those comments ahead of our policy committee meeting. That way we can discuss all of it. And if we have any legal questions after that, if we make any changes or something to legal counsel's recommendations, then we can address those just with them directly. But any objection to that? There's really no action on that item. I just kind of want to bring that up.
No objection. The only thing I'll ask is as you go through the document, can you just say the page you're on?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we have a lot of paper.
Yes, ma'am. Sure will.
Thank you.
Okay, so item number 3, discussion and action regarding Louisiana School Board Association, LSBA, sections 00, 100, and 200 series policies. So you have in your packets those policies as amended or recommended by Mr. Hammonds, our attorney. So I think we'll just kind of start. I would like to point out, so one thing I did was I went through our existing CAP system and basically printed out the table of contents on all of those. So we have section A with like some very general comments that are not necessarily needed to be recited in our policy manual. It's basically school district organization. That's all done by statute, by law, how we're formed. The LSBA policies don't regurgitate the law in a lot of places. And so that whole section, in my opinion, was basically just that, okay? So under school district organization, you know, we have school district legal status, we have school board legal status, powers and responsibilities. We all know that comes out of law. Board member legal status, the number, qualifications of school board members, term of office. The one that we will actually have and a replacement for is unexpired term fulfillment. That's one of the policies that we'll be addressing. That's 101.10. Removal from office, school superintendent legal status, school district organization plan, school census, school year, school calendar, school day. Those will all be repealed with the exception of school calendar and school day. Those actually come up in our system in the 300 series of policies, okay? Just to let you guys know. So for right now, I'm looking to repeal all of those with the exception of unexpired term fulfillment, school calendar, and school day. But we'll kind of get to that here in a second. So just starting at the top, page 21, Ms. Brent, that is Mr. Hammond's recommendations. I guess I'll just kind of open it up for any discussion if we have any issues with his recommendations. I personally did not. So a lot of the policies that we have where he had recommendations, I'm going to recommend to incorporate his recommendations.
Most of his recommendations were just small words for legal value. I commend you getting rid of the noise, because when I first got here, I had you actually print me out the full 1,400 page or 1,300 page possible manual that we had, and it's a lot and unnecessary when it comes to a parent looking at those things. I don't really have any comments further than that, but I appreciate us starting to dwindle down things that are already law and technically really not for the parent, and or they're going to be recited for teachers in other areas. They should know those things, so.
And I agree. So, having said that, we'll keep moving on. We'll just start at policy 01.00, disclaimer. Any issues with that one? Okay. 0200, policy definitions. 0300, policy manual and policy protocol. If y'all would like, 0300 will repeal and replace our policy B/BD. Okay? And just stop me if you have any comments to them, okay? Policy 04.00, policy adoption and revision. That's going to repeal and replace our current policy B/BD. Policy 05.00, policy suspension. Repeal and replace B/BD. Policy dissemination, policy 06.00, again, it's part of B/BD. One that we will have as an addition that's not actually covered, if you go to the crosswalk, it's not shown currently in our policy manual, is district regulations, policy 07.00. That's basically given the ability of the superintendent to formulate regulations to provide directives relative to the superintendent's authority provided in state law or rule. Okay, so I do think that's an important policy to add. That way it's understood that Dr. Fagenbush or any superintendent has the authority to formulate regulations. Any comments or questions on that one?
Yeah, did you speak with Board Member Jones concerning the language of notate to annotate?
Yes, ma'am, that's going to be coming up. I have that one noted. That was on page, I'll get to that one. I think that was like page 21.
Right, well, we went there and then we backed up.
Oh, yeah, no, so. I'm sorry, that was in meeting agenda, Ms. Brent.
Right.
I'm going to find that one. That's condition, just similar to what we allow the superintendent to formulate regulations. The principal, as the administrative head of the school to which they are assigned, each principal may formulate and communicate school procedures to ensure teachers, their employees, and students to the school adhere to basically the requirements. Any questions on that one before I move on? Because that is an addition. But I think that's also an important item to have. Policy 1, we'll go to the 100 series. Policy 100.101.00, members, that repeals and replaces B/BBBB, which is actually one of in our CAPS system, but it's not active. Policy 101.10, .1, filling vacancies. I would like to point out on that, the crosswalk that you were provided, so they leave off that second digit, just to let you know. So it is 101.10. The crosswalk, I guess just in Excel, if you don't tell it an extra digit, it doesn't put it if it's a 0. That repeals and replaces A-ABCDA. Policy 101.20, new member training and orientation. That repeals and replaces B/BBBC. Crosswalk is a little bit inaccurate in my opinion on that one, but that's what I saw that it would replace. Policy 101.30, annual member training. That will repeal and replace B/BBBC. Policy 102.00, member compensation and expenses. I would agree to include Bob Hammond's recommendation to remove that third sentence that is struck through on your version. That will repeal and replace B/BBBE. Policy 103.00, selection and duties of officers. That will repeal and replace B/BBBA. Policy 104.00, board committees, repeals and replaces B/BBC. Policy 104.10, advisory groups, also has some recommendation from Mr. Hammonds. That would repeal and replace BBF, which is in our CAP system but not shown as active. But I do think it's important that we specify that those are advisory groups established by the board and not by, say, like Dr. Fagenbush. She has advisory groups for all kind of stuff. Those would not be subject to open meeting law, only the ones established by this board. So I agree with Mr. Hammonds on that. Policy 105.00, board attorney, repeals and replaces B/BBE. I do have a comment on that one. It reads, the board shall engage, and Mr. Hammond's recommended by board resolution or through on contract, a Louisiana licensed attorney or law firm to serve as the board general counsel. I would leave that as the board shall engage by board resolution a Louisiana licensed attorney or law firm to serve as board general counsel. That's what we do now. I would simply state what we do now. If anybody has any comments or questions on that? Okay. So you got that? Or Ms. Elodie?
Yes, so we're just taking out on contract.
Well, take out or through on contract. So the board shall engage by board resolution a Louisiana licensed attorney or law firm. Okay, policy 106.00, state association membership. Bob said that this was not necessary. Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Yep. So, yeah, okay, I can hear myself now. All right, so Mr. Hammond's identified that this is not required to be in our policy manual. It's currently in there right now. I don't have a problem removing it. I mean, I'm pretty new to this board. I'm one of the new members, first term, but I would imagine we're always going to be a part of LSBA. I'm looking for it if anybody has a strong feeling one way or the other.
I would prefer to remove anything that's unnecessary so we can get down to, it's just intimidating. Our manual's intimidating.
Fair enough. Okay. It's good enough reason for me. We'll still be members, but we'll do it through resolution or through vote or whatever. I mean, we just not, again, it'll clean up the manual a little bit. Okay? So, Ms. Elodie, we'll go ahead and remove that one per Mr. Hammond's recommendation. Policy 201.00, regularly scheduled meetings, repeals and replaces B/BC. Policy 201.10, special meetings, repeals and replaces B/BCAC. That is another one in caps that is not shown as active. Policy 201.20, meeting by electronic means during a declared disaster emergency, repeals and replaces BCAD. Policy 202.00, notification of meetings, repeals and replaces BCBB. Okay, Ms. Brent, this is the one where Ms. Jones made the comment. Policy 203.00, meeting agendas. So it was brought up that in the second paragraph, the second sentence, the agenda shall notate any matter requested by a member. Okay, the comment was made that they would like it to read, the agenda shall annotate any matter requested by a member. I pulled the definitions because I didn't really know which one sounded better either. I think both can apply. And so,
They both either are, because the definitions is definitely the same, but she was so adamant
yes,
about it, and I heard it redundantly. So I think
yeah,
that is
I'm-
why I was given the charge of making sure that I addressed it.
she was definitely adamant, and I would recommend to change it to annotate. Okay? So, Ms. Elodie, the agenda shall annotate any matter requested by a member. Okay, now, I would like to point out, that Mr. Hammonds did have a couple of different scenarios in that policy. Okay, so as far as how to take them out, so there's the verbiage, and I'm gonna just continue reading just so y'all can hear it. Once an item for the board agenda has been requested by a board member, and that item has been approved for addition to the agenda, then that item cannot be removed from the agenda without consent of the member who asked that it be added. So, I have no problem with that verbiage. However, the term has been approved for addition to the agenda. Basically, Mr. Hammond's comment was, who's approving that? He says, it can be the president, it can be the superintendent, or it can be neither. So I'm kind of opening up to the discussion. I'll go ahead and give you my opinion on it. I think when it's a board member requesting an item to the agenda, if there is an approval that needs to be made, it should be done by the president, who is in charge of putting an agenda together. My own opinion, I'll open it up for any discussion.
I'm with you on it being the board president, so we keep lines clear and defined.
So the other item is, it does not need approval. Okay, it's basically three options. No approval, approval by president, or approval by superintendent. So I'm saying that at least, and, I would think that a president of the school board would typically honor the wishes of the members if they want something on the agenda. Okay? But, of course, that's why I'm kind of bringing it up, because not all presidents are Ms. Black.
So my comment on that is yes, I would think for the most part, the president would honor it unless it's something, and it would be discussed. Now, in the event a new president would come in and that doesn't seem the case, I would just pull the policy back to the policy committee review if it becomes an issue for the board.
Okay,
See what I'm saying? Like for me, I would mostly honor it unless it's something.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Anselm.
But if it ever became a problem, just bring it back up to the policy committee, hey, we want to change.
I'm okay with it as our board sits right now. However, in the thought that it would not be us, and if we're writing this policy to go forward for possible generations, some of this stuff hasn't been changed since the 60s and 70s. I don't know what the structure of a board in 10 years will look like. There's been discussions in the past of favoritism or politicization of certain things, and there's a push and a pull, and I would like to protect the right of the board member that was elected by their constituents to be able to have a voice if they so see fit, and if the board votes it up or down, that is the will of the people that they represent.
But, okay, so. What? Yes, Dr.
I
Fagan?
know this is not my discussion. First of all, I don't want to be the sole decider, because as the
Oh.
secretary treasurer, I'm just a support of the board. So I think that should be a board level decision. I do sometimes, though, want to there are discussions where people may suggest something, but it either is not accurate according to policy, the way it's suggested, or it's something that's of a legal concern that should not be brought up in a public forum, that we have to remind them, and then that is retracted. So if we say that any and everything is going to be put on the agenda without any kind of filtering of sometimes the district's interest, there are legal concerns, and then there are just practice concerns that they can't go the way that it's suggested.
And I agree with that. I mean, that's the reason why I thought the board picks the president. So I'm okay with the president kind of being that designee. Yes, ma'am. That's my personal opinion.
So what if we came up with a situation that if something would arise, that the board as a whole would have to vote whether it goes? And then if it passes,
Let's say the board president talks to a board member and if they agree, then it just doesn't happen, right? Like you all have your private conversations and then whatever happens, happens. But if it is something that is a bigger concern and it's denied, then that person, it's a right of the executive committee to determine, because then you would have 3 people involved.
So, and I think there's other ways during the course of a meeting that, well, whether the agenda to be expanded, has to be unanimous. I'm trying to think, I think that we need to get a little bit of legal guidance on that, maybe whenever our attorney gets here. I'm okay with the president approving it for now, but let's go ahead and. Can we put a pin in it? Like, what do you mean? No, I mean, keep the discussion and then talk to them. I agree, well, so I really would like to get these policies done at our meeting tonight, okay? But I want to keep that open for discussion, because if there is no kind of safeguard against what you're worried about, if there may be something out there legally that's open that I just don't know, okay? I think we asked the board attorney that question, and if not, maybe look at some specific wording to guard against that we can add to the existing policy. So I'd say just kind of leave it open in our minds, but actually adopt the policy, because I don't think we're gonna have a problem right now with our current setup at all. However, I do understand that it could happen. So let's start that discussion, but let's go ahead and get past this policy for tonight.
no, I'm good with that. By put a pin in it, meaning like we can add in addition to, if we iron something out later at another policy meeting and move forward with what we have.
Yes, ma'am. Sounds good. Okay, so for now, and we'll continue that discussion, Ms. Anselm. Okay, policy 204.00, meeting procedures. Nothing added to that one. That would repeal and replace BCB. Policy 204.10, public participation and public comment. So this board fairly recently, I don't remember when the adoption or revisions of that was, but we had talked about that recently. Please refresh my memory. I don't remember when it was. Do you remember?
It was a meeting when people had turned in cards to speak, and we were just asking legal about the policy, and we didn't have it in policy. It was just on the blue cards.
I got
where
you. That's
it
right.
was-
That's
what
right.
it was.
Okay, and I think Mr. Hammond's recommendations addresses some of that. So I do like his comment about an individual desiring to speak, give his or her name, and instead of address, we don't need people's specific addresses out there, at least town or city of residence. That way we know what district they're coming from. I do like that. I know that some boards say address, and it's a little bit too much. So I appreciate him catching that. I don't have any other objection to any of his recommendations, but anybody have any problems with it?
Thank you for adding number 4 to public comments, actually, in the,
Yes.
I
Yep.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, so, yeah, let's point that out too. I mean, I don't know if anybody's watching or whatever, but, yeah, we can, allow extended time for, different, more involved topics if need be. We're not gonna use it to allow, people to beat up on anybody, but some of the topics are a little bit more than 3 minutes. Okay.
Andrew, one thing on that one.
Yes, ma'am.
For the public participation for number 4, public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker per agenda item unless otherwise allowed by the board president. We might want to consider taking out unless otherwise allowed by the president. I mean, and just make that common practice, because it's almost like, well, who would the president allow? It might show favoritism or give the illusion that a favoritism might be given if I like you or and I don't like you, I'm gonna give you the minutes. So maybe it just like common practice where, hey, your time is up, finish, you got a minute to finish it up, just being common practice set forth by the board.
We were just discussing that, and how good we like that comment there, because it does give the flexibility, especially if the topic is a little bit more complicated. But I wanted to make sure that that option was not used to beat up or, attack somebody verbally, which, sometimes those comments can get a little heated at times. That's okay. But I guess open for discussion on that. If we can tie it to the item being discussed, whether or not it warrants it or something, because not everything will be.
You really need it?
Flexibility of extended time, and it becomes either you're gonna have 3 minutes or you're not gonna have 3 minutes. So if 3 minutes gonna be the protocol, then
Well,
I think that's what it
So,
should be.
and another item that just something to consider, because I thought about this too. What if you have 20 cards or, a bunch of cards that you've given everybody 3 minutes to say the same thing over and over? I know we have the thing about groups being represented and things like that. But if you're saying, a specific time, that it can bite you the other way too.
Essentially, when I asked for that to be put in there, it was stated that some people didn't feel like they had enough time to speak, but this is what usually the meeting, not a law, but the recommendation of a meeting is. And so I like it at least placed in there so they know when they go look, for the safety of not saying for or against anyone and or the board, to where everybody's limited to 3 minutes unless the discussion warrants further discussion. Because that's already happened in the past, and I'm just looking at going in the future. Again, it's been pretty smooth. I'm very thankful. But there have been situations that it's nice to have it stated. I'm okay with removing unless otherwise allowed by the board president, but I would like to keep the 3 minute. I would like to keep the 3 minute in there, for people to understand that anything over that would just be a common courtesy allotted for a certain subject, but to keep it to 3 minutes just to keep it safe, because that is the common practice in the state of Louisiana for open meetings, period. We're not stating anything above and beyond or expecting less or more of anyone. And once you get to that podium, 3 minutes is a lot more than what people think, unless it's a big discussion and something that you specialize in or are very passionate about. Trust me, I would know.
I agree. I like the 3 minute portion of it, and like I said, I'm good with what the board decides, but if you wanted to make it a little less redundant, unless otherwise allowed by the board president, that last one, I think everybody should come with the expectation that you have 3 minutes.
So, thank you, can I say that? Yeah, Ms. Dennis just asked a question too, because that's another part about it. If any board member has questions for the person at the podium, we do need to give that. So, unless otherwise necessitated by the topic, or unless, which really you're in charge of the meeting as a president. So if a board member has a question, it would still be your call. I'm kind of good with it the way it is, and then it's done that way, honestly.
Well, the comment is to 3 minutes. Once the board has questions, that doesn't go with the 3 minute. That's hands off. So when the board starts engaging and asking questions, their comment time is over. You see, they've made their comment, they've stated what they want, and then the board asks questions after. So it's not a part of the 3 minutes from what I have seen, and so.
It's not, and she always asks, well, and I'm saying, I'm pointing to you and saying that, because you always come with discussion or whatever, so that's almost
Okay,
She always asks. If a board member has any discussions or questions.
I say remove. People should come with the expectation that they have 3 minutes. Most of the time, the extra time comes with comments or questions, and that's not added anyways. So to make it, equal for everyone that comes up, they should expect to have 3 minutes to
Okay.
speak.
So take it out.
take it out. All right. Miss Elodie, you remove that section? Okay, thank y'all. It's kind of productive discussion. I really appreciate at these meetings. Okay, policy 205.00, official journal. This will remove and replace BCBH. And that concludes item 3. So I'm looking for a motion based on our discussion to recommend to the full board those modifications to our policies. Looking for a motion.
I make a motion to, recommend the amended policies to the full board at tonight's meeting.
Okay. Ms. Brent seconds. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Motion carries. All right. All right, so we'll go going up to item number 1, discussion and action regarding policy GAMB, employee dress. Okay, so I'm not going to, I guess, read the whole thing. Employee dress, I mean, you have a comment, question? Well, Ms. Ans.
Are we rolling with the whole thing, or?
I just wanted to point out, I just noticed on page 5 and page 8, page 5 at the bottom, it should be no more than 2 inches above the knee. Not, it must be legal. I forgot to change that. And it's the same thing on page 8 with that.
I can't hear you myself.
We were supposed to put, yeah.
I'm sorry, y'all, if anybody's watching, I just want them to hear me.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. So we had talked about the 2 inches above, no more than 2 inches above the knee, but I just noticed it wasn't fixed correctly in here on page 5 and page 8. So I just wanted to make it consistent throughout.
Okay.
Because we had discussed that's what we have for the students, so we wouldn't want anything
So-
more for.
Just a comment from my perspective, and what I've kind of researched. It's always been my philosophy to not need as exact words for everything that we don't want to allow. I try to give a lot of flexibility and things to our administrators, our principals, our supervisors. However, something of this nature, I understand has traditionally been all over the map, right? So I don't know the history as much as everyone. I'm not going to try and make things harder on everyone. If Dr. Fagenbush and I have kind of talked about it, I went and pulled LSBA's example policy on this. It's a half page, so it leaves a lot to interpretation, right? However, I'm okay with describing it if we need to describe it. Ms. Este, would you agree? I mean, Dr. Fagenbush and I have talked about that, but being very descriptive is necessary, in your opinion?
When talking to some of the principals, when we met, I had one from each grade level and then teachers from each grade level. Some principals prefer so that they don't have to be the one to not make the decision, but it's clear.
And
It's not, this principal says, oh, well, that's okay, and then this one says it's not okay, and then when you go between schools, it's.
So let me ask you this.
Our committee that we have, so they don't, so they understand this came from committee. Can you tell me the members?
Yeah, we had a committee of a principal from each grade level, teachers from each grade level, and we just took the old policy and we discussed, because the old policy was very old, and discussed what they thought was appropriate and made sense, and, yeah.
And
They
so,
didn't care for that principal discretion.
so Ms. Este, would you say that a policy such as this would avoid some of those potential conflicts between a principal and their staff?
Yes, sir.
And, okay,
Because sometimes when you put principal discretion, it's like, well, you say it's like that, but, you know, if you don't put, just a simple example, no more than 2 inches above the knee. Well, what I think is too short and what you think is too short is two different things. So then you're getting into the argument of, you know, yeah.
okay. So,
I've also had those discussions, and it could come down to possibly saying favoritism, things like that. We have had some discussions about the length of some of the teachers' clothing items, and I think it would be safer to leave it at 2 inches above the knee, so it's descriptive and takes the responsibility or leeway away from the principal for them to be able to do their job.
okay. So, yeah, no, I mean, look, so I am, like, personally, I don't have a whole lot of,
It's more of a female thing,
yeah, thank
sir.
you. I didn't want to say
It's more of a female
that, but,
thing.
yeah, thank. Yeah,
And-
but, so going through, Ms. Este, if you don't mind, just kind of run through some of the changes to the previous policy
Okay, so,
from the learning
yeah,
environment.
and they
that.
can be stated where it, like at the top, hair must be clean, neat, well-groomed, and not a distraction, or not cause a distraction, instead of specifically saying multicolored hair, so that we don't get into, I don't know the word I'm looking for.
No, but I think she was, yeah, so almost, you could almost take that one out. Because it
And
does.
just put hair color should not be distracting, maybe. I'm trying to
Any
think of the
style,
term.
so basically that third bullet, any style of
Yes,
hair,
yes.
including multicolors that create a distraction will be considered inappropriate.
We could do that.
Well, we kind of struck something out that maybe we could just it says extreme coloring and extreme hairstyles.
Mm-hmm.
We could just say that creates a distraction will be considered inappropriate and just merge those two bullets.
I like that.
And that would just,
Okay. Ms. Elodie, you got that? Okay, Ms. Este?
Okay,
This is possibly for a regular school day, at Splitsville, because, sometimes when it's homecoming and all this other kind of stuff, these kids wear pajamas and.
right, and we addressed
Ms. Brent,
that.
yes.
Oh,
Ms.
okay.
Ms. Brent,
So
that's covered.
I just, want to make sure
It's
that.
covered a little bit further.
Oh,
and-
I'm ahead. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Yes,
I'm in there.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Speed reading.
Well, Okay, so we got the
Okay,
length.
so we had eliminated the first bullet because we kind of included it in later on. So we talked about the shorts, the 2 inches above the knee. We added the no athletic legging pants, because that, you know, a lot of people are wearing the tights and, you know. The next bullet, we went ahead with the spaghetti straps. That's where we added it, where it's not see-through, it's not tight-fitting. I would always tell my people, you know, we got the 4 Bs, covers your boobs, your butt, your belly, and your back. You know, that's how I would explain it. But, and as far as clothing, of course, no inappropriate slogans or symbols, political, alcohol, drugs, etc. No rips, patches. The shorts would be for exceptions, you know, like field day or dress-up days, things like that, and PE teachers, which comes later. Proper undergarments, of course. Footwear, properly worn, and no rubber, foam, or plastic footwear, because we do have people that come, what I would refer to as I might show my age, flip-flops, you know, the little rubber ones. As far as You know, pants, not excessively tight or sagging. Ties, we changed to optional. I mean, in today's climate, it gets very hot.
Do we have to have that statement on all of them? Can we just take it all out?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can,
okay.
More for,
yeah, can we remove that?
It's right, it's right underneath the waistband and all clothing. Yeah. The ties are optional except for administrators, and we didn't want that debate, so
Right.
we just take it all out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for the denim outfits such as jumpers, skirts, dresses may be worn, but no holes, rips, patches, because then the jeans that are blue in color may not be worn except on designated days. So you have those, you know, black colored jeans, you got the khaki colored jeans, you know, which kind of sometimes look like dress clothes. The athletic leggings, bike shorts, warm-ups, jogging suits, windsuits, or other athletic apparel not, are permitted. And we do address PE teachers later. Employee ID tags are required to be worn and visible. We require that of our students, and we need to require it of our teachers, or employees, should I say. For the piercings, we kind of addressed the facial piercings. One modest nostril piercing, so, you know, modest would be the little stud.
I have a question. I'm not opposed to piercings, obviously. However, when we're looking at a loop, can we talk to legal to make sure that we would not be liable if a possible loop would get ripped out from us allowing it?
Clarification, like you're saying, we were thinking of the little bitty loops, you know what I mean?
That are
The
tight?
little ones, but we're not talking about nasal.
I'm talking about if there would be a school fight or something, the possibility of a loop being ripped out is a lot
I
higher
guess
than
you
a
could-
stud.
You could have that in the ear also,
Yeah.
Correct.
you know?
But if we're specifying loops, I just want to make sure, this one's right here on your face, not over here, that we wouldn't be liable just because we stated that it was acceptable. That's it. I
The
don't
modest
mind
ones
them.
are very tiny. I mean, you haven't, you know, with the earrings and everything, but, that's why we did specify the gauges, spikes and things like that, because that really could be a safety issue.
Right. No, I'm in agreement. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm not opposed, but just wanted to make sure.
Okay?
Okay, and then piercings must not distract from teaching or disrupt the learning. The tattoos can't be offensive, graphic, disruptive, you know, nothing violent or anything. For PE coaches, that was in the policy already. We just added no leggings or bike shorts. For agriculture, health oc, NCP, pre-K to 5 teachers and paraprofessionals. Of course, ag teachers usually wear the jeans or the cargo work pants. Health oc, pre-K, that's the scrubs. Scrub top and bottoms must match, but that's up for y'all discussion. And again, no leggings and bike shorts.
So tell me this, because the matching thing kind of gets me. Because a lot of times, if I have a Garfield or Mickey Mouse and I teach pre-K, I might have a little Mickey Mouse top, but then I'm gonna have a solid
Right,
pair of pants. That would be acceptable?
yeah, it's just
Okay.
having that scrub shirt with the
Cohesion.
scrub bottoms to where
Okay.
they're not wearing a t-shirt and all sloppy.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then for bus operators, we just added bus attendants in there. Again, I need to change the shorts to the 2 inches, no more than 2 inches above the knee. In that first bullet. Second bullet, we added attendance and just went ahead and added the no holes or patches. T-shirts without offensive statements or slogans. For maintenance, we just added the no holes, patches, or rips. They could wear shorts during the summer months. No leggings. Child nutrition, just no leggings and shorts.
Okay, I would like to look at adding one statement under the exceptions that would apply to, as an exception. Employee dress requirements may be modified for special circumstances such as spirit days, holidays, and days on which students are not on campus.
That's not in there?
That kind of covers those off times and everything else whenever,
Okay, yeah.
and I'd like to put that under, right under exceptions.
Like if they go to meetings in the summertime
Sure.
or?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see, we had a discussion concerning the grade bands of the school. So for example, if we're talking about scrubs for pre-K through 5, we do have some schools that are 5, 8, and having just one set of teachers allowed to do something that the rest of the school can't do could be a problem. So I feel like that pre-K 5 is inclusive of those settings that are elementary specific. And or, for example, like Centerville too, our
Yeah.
elementary school is,
Part of,
it is, but it's separate from, it really is kind of separate from the rest of, I mean, there's a very definite, but in some settings where it's combination, they're in the same hallways. So,
Okay, do you think we need to add something to the policy to differentiate that, or is it just enough to state that?
maybe we could just say in schools with combination grade levels, principal discretion will be allowed.
I'm good with that.
Good state. That's me. Well, you're throwing that in the hands of the administrator.
Well, but that's for a combination school. Those are special circumstances already. I mean, but,
In many of those schools,
yeah.
Made
no,
that
I understand,
statement
Yes, ma'am.
only because you said that you didn't want the principal to have, the discretion of making that decision. So that's still a part of a principal's decision, is what I'm saying, the total thing.
I mean, I think like with the principal's discretion, more like the length of pants, whether tattoos or hair or, because a lot of districts that we looked at, a lot was left up to the principal, to where, and here, I mean, really, we're just talking about 2 schools.
I think that's fair for
But I
that.
get what you're saying, Ms. Quinn.
Yeah.
Ms. Burke.
It was just the initial
Right,
discussion,
right,
so I was just transmitting.
yeah.
What we're talking about.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm good with allowing the principal to decide that at those mixed campuses. So, okay, any other discussion or modifications need to be made? Ms. Elodie, you got all of that?
I didn't get to that as far.
Okay, so it will be at the discretion of the principal.
allowed, really, we're just talking about scrubs.
Yeah, we're just talking about scrubs on that one.
So we could just say schools with
Combination grade.
Combination grade levels, yeah.
schools with combination grade levels,
Scrubs are at the discretion of the,
further wearing of scrubs, schools with combination grade levels will.
Okay, and did you get my additional statement, Ms. Elodie?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments? Other than that, then I'm looking for a motion to recommend that modified policy to the full board.
I'm making a motion.
Motion by Ms. Brent, second by Ms. Anselm. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so any other business? Otherwise, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Ms. Anselm, second by Ms. Brent. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.